welcome back. So this is part two. We have left Bartek and Anya in town of the place I can never pronounce, even though it's told me 100 times. We are now in the Pushka, Pushka, yeah, and we have met Daniel. So we're going to carry on now and see what goes on from there. So what stories could I tell? So I loved what I saw. Daniel, sympathetic. There should be more places like this, I said earnestly. Or more of this place. Daniel lifted his head and looked me right in the eyes. Yes, you're right, he said with a serious expression. He was a strange guy, slender, but muscular. Not the CrossFit type, it was more of the kind of strength you get from working all day long in the open. His skin was weather beaten and bronzed by the sun like tanned leather. And he moved in a very deliberate way. But his fingers were slim and delicate, and his eyes were the strangest shame of yellow-green. Then I remembered why I was there. I told him that I dreamed about the forest, and I was cautious when I asked my questions. No, there's a special reason I'm interested in the forest, I admitted. I'm not from here, I continued. Was it the accent that gave it away, do you think? I'm not going to try any accents. But I think something secret connects me to this place. I dream about the forest a lot. Daniel stopped abruptly and turned to me, watching me for a while. His nostrils flared as though he was tasting the air. Daniel was sympathetic. Yeah, his face broke into a smile. I think our families might have known each other many winters past. Pushka still remembers. Come on. He started walking. I know exactly what you need to see. This piqued my interest. Back up to full willpower. Hint. The forest recognized me. Progressed goal mystery. So I was right. There was something hidden in my family's past, and it seemed to have a lot to do with the forest. With every step, I was getting closer to solving the mystery. So I followed him. Oh my god. So I played uh, an old Red Talon Arun called Claw the Wall, and he would have loved it in this game. This place would have been absolutely amazing. He was from the Rocky Mountains, though, so he was very much, yeah, distant. And any game that I've played with him, he was very, very much the outcast, very different to everyone else around him. But it was always more dominant, and well, he was an Arun, so he was just going to get stuck in. He killed a lot of people. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately, he didn't care. Um, yeah, but I think this would have been awesome. At the crossroads, we have to choose a path, he said. There's the old wolf den, or I could show you the barrows first, or a clearing that some folk call a place of power. So let's go to the bar. No, let's go and see the wolf den. Just one small thing. We started walking, but after a few steps he stopped abruptly, like he remembered something. Then he turned. Could you do me a favour, please? He asked. It depended. I don't know, I said slowly. Why don't you tell me what you want first? He ran his hair through the moss on the dead tree trunk, smelled his finger, and then reached into his pocket. He took out a small stone. Too small to be a weapon. Something personal? Inspiring 6. I think I'm heading towards Galliard more than anything. It looked like one of those stones you treasure as a child and then grow out of, but he looked at the pebble as though it was still a treasure. I would like you to take this stone. He held out his open hand towards me, and throw it in the direction you think we should go. I did what he asked. Why not? Okay, I said, reaching for the stone. I took the stone and closed my hand around it. It felt alive. It was warm. I could feel it pulsating. Where did he say he picked the stone out of? Which pocket? Oh. It was warm. I could feel it pulsating. I closed my eyes and thought about the wolf den, trying to imagine that place. I smelled fur. I felt warmth. I was safe. I threw the stone. In his face. No. I felt my hand rising entirely on its own and then throwing the stone as far as I could. It was a good throw. The stone flew in a long arc over the bushes and disappeared without a trace into the... in a long arc over the bushes and disappeared without a trace into the dense undergrowth. Great, Daniel sighed. I was asking for that, wasn't I? What was the purpose of this? Pushka, sympathetic. I love this. I'm loving the fact that we're getting... everything is changing here. It's so cool. So Daniel's sympathetic. Pushka, so the forest is sympathetic. There's going to be a spirit or the cairn or something like that, isn't it? That's going to pan out to be. Oh my god, this is so good. And I am not just saying that either. Blah, 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 blah. What was that for? I demanded. To introduce you, he answered with a faint smile, before he turned to head deeper into the forest. Ooh. Oh, that is so cool. I love the fact that they're walking. That's a wolf's head there. That's amazing. This art style is so good. The first thing I noticed when we stopped was a pine tree. A pine tree I knew. I rage. I remembered it. Small, twisted, crooked, and immensely powerful. Every bend of every branch had a story to tell. It's majestic, I thought suddenly. Months before that, when I decided to come to Poland, I dreamed of that tree. I was sure of it, just like I was sure that under its roots I'd find a burrow and a few feet away another one, like two dark eyes gazing at me. Daniel passed me and approached the tree. He pressed his cheek against the trunk. Hello, he said quietly. I said nothing. Was there someone else there? Hello again. Hello again, I said quietly. Daniel looked at me with surprise but didn't comment. This is the den, announced Daniel. It's abandoned, of course, but still worth seeing. Why was it abandoned? What happened? I asked. Humans happened, Daniel sighed. He sat under the tree, leaning his back against it. It was a hot spring morning when they found this den. No one knows who the men were, even though it was only one human generation ago. There were 6 cubs here under the roots of this tree. It stopped stuttering and seemed to enjoy telling the story. I enjoyed listening. There was something calming in his voice and the way he talked. His slow gestures and wistful eyes made me feel as though I was the cubs on that hot spring morning. I don't think they wanted to hurt the wolves, he continued. They probably thought they'd been abandoned. That's why they took the cubs with them. Humans have the instinct that makes you try to befriend everything, especially if it's dangerous. Not befriend, enslave. I didn't disagree. Yeah, we were like that. So, I think she'd be annoyed that they've just taken these cubs and have, I don't know, well, yeah, so we'll go for that. You mean enslave, I answered simply, pulling something from the world and forcing it to work for us. I hated it, but it was how it seemed to be. I'm not saying it always works out, but the intention is good, and I believe the men who kidnapped the wolves wanted to do something kind, he continued. Anyway, they took them. Out of the 6, 2 lived to see the cold summer that year. The wolf mother used to come to the farm that they were at and howl. People went grey if they heard her. I knew that howl. And suddenly I heard that howl. I knew exactly how it sounded, and I felt despair and longing gnawing at my soul. I remembered how the cubs had reacted. They threw themselves at the door. Ooh, bravery is going up. Every time she came, we threw ourselves at the door, biting, trying to break free to escape. I realised that Daniel was silent. I met his gaze. Do you feel alright? Are you sad? Don't be. It's not all sad. See, what's Daniel? Theurge? Maybe? Maybe a Philodox? Who knows? I felt for the cubs. I just feel for the cubs. I know a little about divided families myself. Oh? Yeah, that usually ended the conversation. Daniel sighed, looking at the tree in the burrow. The cubs that survived were sold to some people in Kinufka. But after a while they ended up back in... Oh, I'm going to learn it again. Białowice. It's not very good at this. With the scientists, they have a station in the national park. One of the wolves, Kazan, was a celebrity of sorts. If you saw any wolf photos from here, they were probably of Kazan. Białowice. If he was even on postcards. Hoped had eaten someone. Oh, become neutral. The scientists never hurt him. Nobody wanted to hurt him, even the men who took the cubs. There was a slight gust of wind and the tree creaked. I remembered that sound from my dreams as well, a sound that made me feel safe. I looked at the empty den. Will the wolves come back here? No, they won't. This place is cursed for them. We fell silent. We looked at the burrows for a long time. This place, my friends, this place is my friend, so I try to keep it important and respected. I think it's my mission, you know? I could relate to that. I think I understand. The forest had a way of sending people on missions. Daniel looked at the tree one last time. Goodbye, he said. Yeah, I also said my goodbyes. Oh, that's so cool. I'm a friend of the forest. Okay, so I've done the... So, do I go to the graves? Or the place of power? Magic? Tourist trap? Let's go to some graves. The trails soon disappeared. Sometimes we walked along a barely visible path made by some animals. Sometimes we followed a stream or a gully, but for most of our trek, we walked through the dense undergrowth. I was getting impatient. The sun was barely noticeable through the dense canopy. I had no idea which direction we were going in, and I was starting to doubt if Daniel did. It was a pleasant walk. Pushka is loyal, so that's because of that. There was always a path through the brambles. The ground was even, and the branches stayed out of our way. It almost felt like the forest wanted us to find the way. Daniel was a mystery I decided to solve. See, he's interesting, but he is also a bit odd. And Maia seems to be more focused on herself rather than other people. So let's stubbornly push on. I fixed my eyes on Daniel's back and slowly zoned out, which was not very smart. Oh, were we falling down? Came to my senses when I tripped and almost fell. Watch where I place my feet and follow me, advised Daniel. We continue in silence. So what's happened now? See, it's all going well. Been walking for a while when I noticed that Daniel's steps had become slower. He was also looking around more often. It had hunched slightly. Fuck, we were lost. Was it the barrows? Are we there yet? I asked. He froze for a second as though he'd forgotten that I was there. They're tricky to find sometimes, he mumbled. Be quiet for a minute, please. That was when I felt it. Ash in my mouth, the smell of smoke and wet soil, and a pull. Do I tell him to shut up? I knew where to go. I think I know where to go, I said, surprised. He tilted his head. Okay, let's check it out. I pointed to the barely visible path to my left under a dying tree. He followed me and I followed my feet, knowing exactly where they should go. Under the crooked tree, past the dead tree trunk and the sponge-like mushrooms, across the patch of wet, dark green moss, all the way to the place that didn't look much different than the other parts of the forest, until you noticed the mounds. There was something about the flattened hills that drew my full attention. They must have been bigger in the past. I could remember. I felt dizzy. I think she's remembering a lot, isn't she? A memory stirred in my mind. No, it wasn't a memory. It was a feeling anchored in my chest, akin to the taste of ash in my mouth and the smell of smoke, longing, sadness, resignation. But there was more. A sense of sacredness filled me with calm, excitement, and when I closed my eyes I saw a fire burning in the darkness. Voices. Inspiring. The dead were trapped beneath the stones, their bodies tangled in the roots, some wore ancient Roman armour, some rags, some uniforms from the world wars, some modern camo. Their eyes were clogged with wet clay, but their mouths moved, repeating the stories of their lives. Will you tell them our stories? They asked. Will you remember us? No, only one story was important. I had another mission. There was only one story worth telling. The story of the forest. When I opened my eyes, Daniel was watching me. You were somewhere else, he said. You said you had family here? I nodded. I heard that my father's family came from here. I don't know much about them, though. He sighed. I don't think you should be here, he said tersely. You're not ready. He knew something. Why? What do you know? I wasn't letting go. About you? Not much. But I know the Pushka. The past is close here. His eyes were worried as he looked at me. And if the Pushka calls to you, it's wise to listen. But it's not wise to get lost in the voices. Come. On the way back, I was lost in my thoughts. The voices in the vision knew what I had to do. It's almost as though it was expecting me. Was this what the forest wanted from me? Daniel said that the Pushka had called me. Was the vision showing me what the forest needed? I can read, I promise you. I accepted that thought. Ooh, hint updated. The forest showed you visions of blood and fire. People were scared of whatever connected my family to the forest. Were the visions of blood and fire show me what why they were afraid? Well, I've only just noticed the ripples. The walk back was uneventful. Alright.
toilet.
Okay. Back. Okay, so let's head off to the place of power. A buzzing in my ears. It started with the hair on the back of my neck, the back of my hands rising. The air around me seems brighter, lighter. The leaves in the tree trunks turned yellow and my skin started to prickle. I realised that I couldn't hear anything except for a low buzzing that was filling my ears. I was hot. My bones were vibrating, full of energy I couldn't contain. I had to do something, snap out of it. So I don't think she'd hit a tree. I think nature is too important. I'm also trying to figure out what tribe here as well, but no, there's a few that scream to mind. Scream to mind? Come to mind. What the hell am I talking about? Let's go with screamed. Took a deep breath and let out a scream. Not from the top of my lungs, but from the bottom of my stomach. I could feel the sound filling me, replacing the strange buzz, if only for a moment. In a moment of clarity, I realised that there was a clearing, perhaps 10 feet from me. I saw a silhouette moving slowly, deliberately, although they must have heard my scream. The clearing was a plateau between huge boulders. There were doubled tree trunks between the rocks. There was a bike leaning on it, but more importantly, there was a man, and he was moving in the most beautiful, harmonious way I'd ever seen. Hypnotizing. I couldn't stop looking at the way he moved, the way his muscles danced under his tan skin. I admired the precision, the certainty, the way the man carried himself. I wanted to have that. I wanted to be like him, and I knew I could. The energy that had been filling me earlier took form. It was flowing in rhythm with his steps, with the flow of his hands. The words came out of my mouth seemingly without my knowing. What was wrong with this place? What's wrong with this place? I shouted, frustrated. He stopped and looked at me. It's in pain, he said calmly. He stretched his hand towards me. I'm Cornell, he said with a hand, German accent too. Shouldn't you be on the logging site? Daniel asked after I introduced myself. I needed to center myself, he answered. The others are still there, don't worry. Center himself? Here? How could you come here to center yourself? I asked, remembering the buzzing, restless energy from just moments before. This place is special, Daniel said. Some people call it a place of power, as I told you. And they have a good reason to, Cornell said. Look around you. So I looked. It was a clearing filled with light. I could see Cornell's traces, a beautiful pattern on the ground, but there was one thing that caught my attention more than anything else. The tower spoiled the serenity of the scene. The boulders around us were strange. Fruit trees. So I think the tower would have spoiled. Why the fuck is this here? I asked, pointing at the observation tower. I thought this was supposed to be a forest untouched by humans. People believed this was a place of worship thousands of years ago, hence the fruit trees, the stone circle, and now the tower. And indeed, there is a lot of energy in this place. You felt it, didn't you? Yeah. Cornell, neutral. Yeah, I felt it, I said without enthusiasm. The pushka is wounded and in pain, and it calls out in rage to anyone who can hear it. Here, this call is louder. You see the logging? His eyes darkened. Is slaughter. He looked at the trees for a moment. Every priceless thing can be destroyed by greed. Logging is illegal, of course, but illegal... sorry, I've got a really long nail, so I'm just going to cut that. Every priceless thing can be destroyed by greed. Logging is illegal, of course, but illegal is sometimes just a way of saying a bit more expensive, but still profitable, especially for a huge corporation. For huge corporations, the forest is hurt, the wound is getting bigger, and as is its desperation. Why doesn't anyone sabotage it? Why doesn't anyone know about it? It was wrong. Ooh. I clenched my fists. Someone should sabotage the whole thing. You can't log without tools, and buying new tools will get unprofitable at some point. Cornell regarded me for a moment with a faint smile. You have a connection with this forest, don't you? You should come to the logging site and meet everyone. Sounded good. It could be the next step, and even if it wasn't, something had to be fucking done about the logging situation. Yeah, I'll come, I smiled. Great. You will understand what you will need to do. He jumped suddenly and looked at the wooden tower and the bike I'd noticed earlier. Die Schwalbe is getting restless, he said. And as Daniel pointed out, I should be on the logging site setting up the protest. Schwalbe? What is a Schwalbe? I asked, confused. He named his bike Swallow, Daniel explained. He loves it very much. Cornell grinned. Oh, I do. Nice meeting you, Maia. All I wanted to do was get out of there. The moment he disappeared, the buzzing came back. It wasn't as strong as before, but it was there. All I wanted to do was get out of there. Interesting. We made our way back. So... Curiouser and curiouser. I think there's a lot more going on here than we've discovered so far. I think there's... Yeah, the potential here is this game's going to be huge. This is yeah, really good fun. So back into town. So yeah, I'll carry on next time, being back in town, and then we can see what's going on probably with Anya and Bartek and stuff like that. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do all the biz, and I'll see you next time.